Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today I'm excited to showcase yet another trim level of the all-new 2024 Chevy Traverse, this time in the LT trim level. And in fact, this is actually one of the most affordable LT all-wheel drives you can get, outside of this one having the EvoTex leatherette on the inside. So if you guys follow along here on the channel, then you'll know I've covered nearly every trim level of the all-new Traverse thus far, except for the Ultra Base LS, which does come in an 8-passenger configuration as standard, where that is optional here on the LT, and unfortunately this one does not have that option. But anyways, like I said, outside of having the EvoTex leather on the inside, this one is going to be one of the most affordable LT all-wheel drives that is currently available for the 2024 model year. Now also, if you guys have been following along, then you'll know last week I posted the 2024 GMC Acadia Elevation. That one did have a little bit more equipment than this one, but the Acadia Elevation is going to be the most equivalent trim level in the Acadia's lineup to that of the Traverse LT, although there are going to be a handful of options and features that you simply cannot equip a Traverse with that do come standard or optional over there on the Elevation Acadia. So make sure you guys check that one out if you guys are curious about the crystal metallic exterior or the purple offered on the Traverse and the Acadia, or just want to know a little bit more about some of the differences between this LT and that Elevation in the GMC's lineup. But with all that information in mind, let's not waste more time. Get into taking a look at this 2024 Traverse LT, which comes in just under $44,000. So the Traverse in front of us is finished in the radiant red exterior with the black EvoTex leatherette on the inside. Outside of the extra cost for the radiant red as well as the black EvoTex, this is going to be a base LT, so all of the features and options will be found on every single LT you see on your local dealership lot. Now, starting at the front end of every Traverse for this next generation, you will find full LED lighting no matter which trim level that you do get. So up top, you do have the LED daytime running lights with turn signals, and then down below that in a separate housing, you do have the LED projector headlights, both low and high beam. Now, unfortunately, this vehicle does not have any availability for LED fog lights, so it's basically just the LED projector headlights that are found in the middle of the front fascia. Now, with that being said, you can see the LT does have a fair amount of bright chrome work and trim here at the front of the vehicle. Even though this is, just one step up from that base LS, it still looks very premium for a mid-size 3-row SUV with all that nice chrome grille and, of course, the chrome housing around the headlamp itself. Now, the LT does have a lot of the body color accents as well for the front fascia and the front bumper design, unlike that of the Z71 and some of the higher trim levels that do get more of the gloss black accents or the totally unique front fascia in the case of the Z71 for a little bit of additional ground clearance. Now, every Traverse will also come with the 360 surround view camera system as standard, so that is going to be the camera located right there, as well as your traditional gold bow tie. But outside of that, pretty much those are going to be the features at the front of the vehicle. Now, coming around to the side of the Traverse LT, you do have the standard matte black plastic cladding around the wheel arches and the lower door sections, just like that of some of the last Traverses in the previous generation. Now, of course, if you've seen some of my other videos, if you do get an RS trim, that will be changed out with the gloss black plastics. That certainly gives it a much more premium look, in my opinion, and a totally different exterior appearance. But most Traverses out there you will see will have the standard black cladding as seen here. Now, coming to the wheel and tire setup, this is going to be the standard LT wheel available without the Midnight Appearance Package or any of the additional accessory wheels. It is going to be 18-inch in size with a gunmetal and machine finish. It is riding on a 255/65 18-inch Bridgestone Alenza AS02 if you guys are curious about the model. So very familiar tire to that of the GM SUV lineup. Coming up to the mirror caps, it looks like you do have gloss black mirror caps as standard with your LED turn signal integration, and of course the cameras on the bottoms for that 360 surround view camera system. Traverse is laid out in chrome lettering here on the sides of the two front doors, and you will find proximity entry on all 4 door handles, which is great to see. Sometimes Chevy has limited to the 4 proximity entry door handles to that of the GMC and the higher versions of this vehicle. Now, here on the side of the vehicle, you can see there is that chrome trim that continues on here for the top of the belt line, as well as some nice gloss black B and C pillars out back. And then the LT will also add the roof rails up top on the vehicle for additional accessories or cargo hauling capabilities that will not be found on the standard LS, unless you do, I believe, equip it with the Midnight Appearance Package, which might add those as an additional option with that particular package. But overall, a very nice appearance on the side of the vehicle. And then continuing out back, back. The LED lighting will continue on with the tail lamps, which look very, very nice. They do have a red accent on the inside, unlike that of the RS, which gets the more clear design. Now, obviously, they will all light up with the red light for safety and legal reasons, but these are going to be full LED with your brake lights and turn signals up top, and then your reverse lights are located a little bit farther down on the rear bumper and also going to be an LED design. You do have the rear parking sensors as standard, along with the quad-tipped chrome exhaust, which looks fantastic. I think it gives it a very nice aggressive stance. And you can see more of that kind of medium silver trim here in the middle of the rear bumper that surrounds those exhaust tips. And then there is going to be the gloss black accents that's in the middle of the tailgate design, along with a little washer nozzle for the rear camera, just to make sure it is cleaned. And I believe you can activate that either separately on the infotainment system or along with the rear wiper setup. So overall, a very, very nice appearance here on the kind of mid trim level LT for just under $45,000, like I mentioned. So even though this isn't the nearly fully equipped LT or some of the higher trim levels, including the Z71 or the RS, it still comes extremely well equipped, especially when you compare it to the last generation. So with all that information in mind, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the window sticker so you guys know exactly how it is equipped. So take a look at the window sticker. Like I mentioned, this one only has the EvoTex interior and the Radiant Red Tinko as additional options on top of the standard LT. But even with that being said, it still comes very, very well equipped with the wireless charging pad, 7-passenger seating, power driver's seat, the 18-inch alloy wheels, rear parking assist, the AutoSense power liftgate, tons of USB-C ports on the side, Wi-Fi hotspot, and of course the adaptive cruise control, forward collision alert, lane keeping assist, etc. And with those slight additional options, this brings the total MSRP, including destination, of this one to $44,890. So taking a look on the interior, like I mentioned, this one has the black EvoTex, but there is going to be other interior options available depending on the exterior color you do choose. Starting out here on the door panel, you're going to find a lot of nice soft touch materials across every vehicle for this next generation, including this upper section right here is going to be a textured leatherette type material. And of course the armrest is going to be very similar with a little bit of lighter accent stitching. You can see there is a fair amount of satin or bright chrome trim, including the door handle pull. There's the lock and unlock. It does have full power windows, mirrors, and locks with the automatic driver's side window only. And there is going to be the power liftgate button a little bit farther down on the front door. And as you can see, there is going to be a good amount of lower door storage. Now, this particular one does not have the upgraded audio system, so it just has the standard 6-speaker from GM. But there's going to be a look at the power driver's seat, 8-way in design with 4-way power lumbar. And there's going to be the EvoTex interior with the white accent stitching and of course the perforations. I have not been able to locate a cloth interior one or see one in person quite yet, but hopefully I will be able to showcase that here on the channel. And there is going to be a quick look at the dashboard. Now here on the inside of the Chevy Traverse LT, you're going to find a very similar layout and similar technology to that of most of the other vehicles, but with a few different features, options, and materials depending on the trim level that you do choose. Now in front of the driver, you're going to find the standard fully digital 11-inch instrument cluster that is going to be controlled here on the right side of the steering wheel. Now this is very similar in layout and the overall UI to that of some of the recent GM products, including the Colorado, the Chevy Trax, as well as the updated Trailblazer, etc. So if you've seen any of those vehicles or seen any videos on them, the layout to that is going to be very, very similar. And make sure you guys stay tuned and check out some of the other videos I have here on the channel if you guys want to know how to use this instrument cluster as well as the infotainment system in a little bit more detail. But anyways, this is kind of the main home screen you'll see inside of the vehicle. On the left side, you can see your time and date, your current fuel range, as well as your all-wheel drive setting. You can see it is in 2-wheel drive. In the middle, you have your tachometer as well as a digital speed readout, additional fuel level and coolant temperature. Your odometer is found in the very middle at the bottom. And then finally on the right side, you have some of your seatbelt indicators, ambient exterior temperature, your audio, as well as your current gear selection. Now pressing that button here on the steering wheel, it will go ahead and cycle through all of the available pages, including a dedicated nearly full screen integrated Google Maps, which is fantastic to see. I believe this will also show your Apple Maps on the screen if you do have wireless Apple CarPlay enabled on your phone. Not quite sure about the wireless Android Auto functionality. Now pressing it one more time, it will bring up a driver assistance page that will kind of show you what the current driver assistance and what systems are enabled inside of the vehicle. And then finally pressing it one more time, it will give you more of a clean layout with just the digital speed readout and some of your necessary information on the screen itself. And of course, returning to home will be pressed one more time. Now coming back to the steering wheel, this is going to be a leather-wrapped heated steering wheel on every single Traverse for this next generation, so that is fantastic to see. On the left side, you have some of your regular and adaptive cruise control functionality, including your distance and forward collision avoidance. Now, of course, Super Cruise is going to be available as part of a separate dedicated package on the LT trim and higher. So if you're looking for that, you do have to get the LT or higher, and of course, option that additional package for, I believe, just over $3,000. And then coming over here to the right side, you do have your audio multimedia as well as that heated steering wheel button that I mentioned. On the back side, you do have paddle shifters for the 8-speed automatic transmission, as well as little rockers for the volume and tune for the actual infotainment radio system. This vehicle does not have rain sensing wipers available, but I believe the RS will have it on the Traverse. And then finally coming over here, you do have your current gear selection. So this is a change of pace from what the last generation Traverse offered. And GM has been moving to this column mounted gear selection for the transmission and some of the more recent models, including the upcoming 2025 Chevy Equinox, obviously here in the Traverse, the Blazer EV, etc. So that frees up a little bit more space here in the center console. Now to the left of the steering wheel, you do have your electronic parking brake, drive mode select. This vehicle does have a few available drive modes, including snow and ice, off-road, sport, as well as a normal drive mode. So it looks like you have 4 additional modes there, and that will alter the traction control and some of the other different driving settings. It does have a dedicated all-wheel drive button, so that will lock the vehicle into a 50-50 split, both front and back. There's going to be your engine stop start on and off, as well as your cluster dimming controls right there. Now above that, you have some of that kind of gunmetal trim that does match the door panels and some of the other trim around the exterior. Now taking a look at the dashboard, you do have actually some very nice soft touch materials that you would not normally find on a vehicle or trim level in this price point, which matches once again a lot of the other interior elements. And then finally coming over here to the infotainment system, this is going to be the 17.7-inch diagonally measured infotainment screen that supports wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Sirius XM, AM, FM, USB, Bluetooth inputs as well, and does have the built-in Google and Alexa integration. So a very useful system, has a ton of functionality. Make sure to check out some of those videos I will have coming up here in the very near future, going over this in a little bit more detail. But as a whole, it has a lot of integration, but there is also going to be a lot of the vehicle controlled here digitally versus that of physical hard touch buttons. So for example, here's your lane keeping assist. You have your headlight controls that are enabled on the touchscreen, as well as another control menu that brings up dome lights, power window lockout, camera, traction control, high beam assist, as well as your rear park assist sensors over there. And then pressing the more controls, you can go a little bit more in depth, obviously, and customize it to your liking. Climate controls are all fixed on the screen, both at the bottom as well as a dedicated page right there. So like I said, there's a lot of functionality, but glad to see it still does support wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now below the screen or on the screen itself, you do have those dedicated climate controls like I mentioned. So it does have dual zone climate controls up back, one zone for the rear occupants. This vehicle comes equipped standard with heated seats. Ventilated seats are not going to be available unless you get the top RS trim level, unlike that of the Acadia lineup, where it does come optional on the AT4 as well as the Denali. So a little bit of a difference there in terms of the Traverse versus the Acadia. Down below, you do have the 2 AC vents mounted fairly lowly here on the actual dashboard itself. More physical buttons for the climate controls, which is great to see. I always appreciate some physical knobs and buttons. So you have your temperature, your automatic fan speed controls, your manual fan speed, as well as your front and rear window defrost. Wireless phone charging for your phone down below, USB-A and USB-C integrations, as well as a 12-volt outlet kind of buried way back in there. Gloss black plastic here around the 2 central cup holders. Does come standard with the proximity key fob with built-in remote start, as well as the power liftgate. A little bit of additional storage here just in front of the center console. Not exactly sure what you'd use this for, but it is a fairly sizable space. And then you do have some nice soft touch materials here on the center armrest, along with the sides of the center console, with additional storage located down below. Now here in the center console, it does have a little pull-out tray along with a little LED light, but unfortunately there's not going to be any additional charging or ports inside. Now up top, top, you do have the black headliner with some of the microphones for the voice commands, as well as the active noise cancellation. There's your vanity illumination, manual dimming, interior rearview mirror, OnStar, SOS, hazards, passenger airbag, overhead LED lighting, as well as a dedicated sunglasses holder, which is awesome to see. Manufacturers have been discontinuing or going away from this, but I appreciate GM still offering that inside of this Traverse. And then this vehicle does not have the optional and available panoramic sunroof, but just the standard headliner layout. So yeah, that's going to be a look here at the front seat. Let's go ahead and take a look at back. So take a look in the back of the Traverse LT. I'm glad to report that all materials will follow through from the front two seats here on the second row doors. So all of this is going to be the same soft touch material. You have a good amount of lower door storage, as well as, of course, some silver bright work with your power window switch. Now, as you can see, this one is the 7-passenger configuration that is going to be standard. However, there is going to be availability on the LT for an optional 8-passenger, which essentially adds the bench seating for the second rows. And that is, in fact, also standard on the LS. You cannot get the 7-passenger on that one. So kind of a pick your preference there. Now, on the side of the seat, you have your manual recline adjustment, as well as the slide here at the front via that lever. And then you can see a look at the Evotex bucket seats. Looks very nice with your manual handle to gain access to the third row, which of course I will go over here a little bit later. Now, stepping inside, the step-in height is going to be very easy for a vehicle like this. There's going to be a look at the front dashboard. Now, like I mentioned, out back, you do have a third zone automatic climate control for the second and third rows with your dedicated controls down there. 2 USB-C charging ports, as well as a wall outlet, which is awesome and fantastic to see, and a little bit of additional storage. 2 good-sized cup holders up top for the second row occupants. There's your map pockets on both of the 2 front seats. Grab handles, as well as your overhead AC vents, very similar to that of the last generation. And then, of course, your LED overhead lighting does continue on from the front seats to the back as well. There is going to be nice padded armrests for the second row captain's chairs. And along with the captain's chairs, you obviously have easier access to the third row, say if you have children or anything like that, between the 2 front seats, which you would not have access to if you did have the bench seat option. So do keep that in mind. Yeah, overall room is going to be very good back here. This seat is actually almost all the way up in its most forward position, but sliding it back to a reasonable seating position via that lever. As you can see, the amount of room gets much greater, and this is going to be my rough driving position inside this vehicle. I have like probably a foot of legroom, tons of footroom down below, and of course headroom is not going to be a problem either with 4 or 5 inches of headroom, especially without the panoramic sunroof option. So that's a look here at the second row. Let's go ahead and jump out back to the third row and see what's available back there. Now, like I mentioned, this is going to be a manual ingress and egress to the third row, but I will say this mechanism is greatly improved over the previous generation Traverse, which actually only had this functionality on one side of the vehicle, not both. So really like that fact for this next generation, but unfortunately no power release or power tilt and slide is available unless you get the RS. Now, taking a look at the third row seats before we step inside, you can see they are going to be made of the same material, and it does have 3-person across. So if you're looking for that, this vehicle does have that. And then tilting the seat back, it does return to its last position, which all the way back, my knees are actually touching the seat back itself. However, even with that said, it's not that bad of an experience back here. And I actually have a fair amount of footroom down below. As you can see, I have a good amount of height underneath the seat itself. Now, you will find USB-C charging back here in this vehicle. Awesome to see. Hard plastics for the armrest, unfortunately, but there is going to be 2 cup holders on either side, more AC vents, LED lighting, and the seats themselves, unfortunately, do not recline back here in the third row either. They're kind of just fixed in one position, but the headrest can be folded down separately from the seat. And yeah, that's a better look at the USB on that side of the vehicle. But as a whole, I think the third row legroom and available room for adults back here is actually not quite class leading, but very, very close to that of some of the other vehicles that have currently been debuted for their next generation. I think the seat bottom itself is mounted very good off the floor, and I really wouldn't mind spending an hour or 2 back here by any means, if not a little bit longer. But obviously this still is not going to be made for those longer road trips for full-size adults. So yeah, overall no complaints with the third row legroom and overall physical space back here. So taking a look at the cargo and trunk area, obviously, like I said, the power tailgate is going to be standard equipment here on the LT. And taking a look behind the third row seats with them in their upright position, you can see there is going to be a ton of storage capacity, and this is going to be one of the strong suits of this particular vehicle. On the left side, there's really not much additional space or cutouts. On the right side, you do have the 12-volt outlet along with some hooks for additional accessories such as cargo netting or anything like that. Underneath the floor, you'll still find a very deep and very usable underfloor storage space. And then beneath this bin, you'll find the temporary spare tire inside of the vehicle. So you do have to remove that via these 4 nuts, 2 on the right, 2 on the left side. But that still shouldn't be very bad, and good to see that a temporary spare tire is still located inside this vehicle. And then if these floor mats were not on the actual shelf itself, it would stay upright in place, so you have easier loading and access to the underfloor storage. But obviously you can fold the seats down via these pull levers on the left and right hand side. So do that, it's just basically one single motion just like that. And then if you are looking for the power release third row seats, unfortunately, once again, that is only found on the top RS. So if you like the power up down third row seats with power release second row seats, you do have to opt for the most expensive version of the Traverse. But as you can see, with those third row seats folded down, the cargo capacity and overall interior volume is just massive, and this is going to be one of the larger in the segment. And then finally, wrapping this video up here on the passenger front seat, this one being an LT, unfortunately does not come with a power passenger seat, nor does it include height adjustment. So this is just going to be a 4-way manual design with slide as well as tilt and recline. Here's a better look at the dashboard with some of those gray and silver accents. And then the glove box is going to be damped, but unfortunately does not include any sort of illumination. But as I showed, this is a massive glove box with tons of usable space and room inside. So yeah, that's a look here on the interior of the LT. Let's go and pop the hood, see what powers this particular vehicle, and then go ahead and wrap up this video. So under the hood of every single Traverse for this next generation, you're going to find the same 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder paired to an 8-speed torque converted automatic transmission. Now this engine puts out 328 horsepower and 326 pound-feet of torque through the front wheels only, or all 4 wheels if you do select all-wheel drive. Now I believe this engine is loosely based upon the 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that has been found in the mid-size and full-size trucks for the last several years, but does obviously have some tweaks as it does make additional horsepower versus the 2.7, but quite a bit less torque than those trucks, which is really the purpose of the 2.7 in those applications. But overall, MPG is kind of average for the segment at about 19 city and I believe 24 or 25 MPG out on the highway here with the all-wheel drive versions. I'm sure the front-wheel drive versions get maybe 1 or 2 MPG better in either of those two, but overall, vehicle is going to be fairly powerful, should propel the vehicle much better than that of the outgoing 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6, and still does retain the 5,000 pound towing capacity when properly equipped. So very impressive results from the 2.5 liter turbo. So let's go do it here for this walk around tour of the 2024 Chevy Traverse LT all-wheel drive. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and or found something helpful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button below. It greatly helps out the channel in these videos. Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to check out some additional content I have here on the all-new Traverse, as well as the GMC Acadia, nearly in every single trim level. Now, I haven't been hands-on with the LS quite yet. I am very interested to see the 8-passenger seating, as well as what the standard roughly $40,000 Traverse has to offer. But I think a lot of these videos do cover the main volume that will be sold in the Traverse's lineup, the LT, Z71, and the RS. And of course, I did create those side-by-side trim comparison videos a couple months ago prior to the launch of this vehicle, where I compared the LS to the LT to the Z71, and the Z71 to that of the RS, and tell you the exact features and options that you're gaining going up to that higher trim level. So I think those videos are going to be extremely helpful over the coming months as these start to roll out in mass to dealerships and people are actually seeing these vehicles hands-on and actually doing a little bit more research. But the LT, as it sits here in a nearly base trim level, I think these EvoTech's interior option is well worth it for $1,000. Is still going to be a very, very well-equipped Traverse. Now, it comes in the mid $40,000 price range, which is, very competitive, and I think a volume segment for buyers in the mid-size through-road class. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if that near $50,000 price point, either in a fully loaded LT all-wheel drive, a mid-trim Z71, and of course the RS goes up to about $58,000. I wouldn't be surprised if, a little bit more equipment on these vehicles will be, the most common that people will ultimately select when buying this vehicle. But standard heated seats, heated steering wheel, leather wrapped steering wheel, EvoTech's for $1,000. You get the Tri-Zone automatic climate, the enhanced driver assistance technologies. I think, when you look at all that combined with the, large infotainment system with wireless Android on Apple CarPlay, it makes for a very compelling option. I think the 2.5 liter turbo will obviously be one of those wait and see types of things, but the additional power output from it should help a vehicle of this size move around much easier and much more effortlessly versus that of the 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6 found in the last generation, or a couple last generations, I should say. But I really have overall very positive thoughts on the Traverse for this next generation. Sure, there's going to be a minor couple things that I would certainly change, including the gloss black plastic here in the center console. Would be nice to see some additional options, including the power up-down third row seats on vehicles, not only on the top RS at 58,000, but optional on Z71, maybe even fully equipped LTs. I think that would make it much more competitive for the price point, but I think if you're looking at a Traverse or an Acadia, ultimately decide what your wants and needs are, which features and options you can't live without, and go from there. I certainly see some benefits to that of the Acadia Elevation over the Traverse LT, especially for the price point, but ultimately that's just going to be a couple $1,000s more, and you'd have to decide whether or not that is going to be worth it to you. With all that being said, let me know your thoughts and comments on the Traverse LT or just the Traverse in general down in the comment section below. Very interested to hear what people start to say about this vehicle as they see them in person and out on the roadway. I think the styling of the Traverse is actually better than that of the Acadia. I know that's hard to believe, but I actually like the Traverse's styling and interior layout much better than that of the Acadia. I don't like the vertical screen, and I don't necessarily care for the rear end of the new Acadia quite as much. Still think it's an attractive SUV, but I think the Traverse would be my pick if I were actually going to buy one myself, just for the interior as well as the exterior styling. Specifically, those taillights are very, very cool. But overall, yeah, you guys have let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. As always, check out some additional content I have here on the channel. Consider becoming a channel member to support these videos just a little bit further. And as always, I hope to see you guys in the next one.